Welcome back to the Qlik MCP Cordon Green Culinary School of Agenic Awesomeness. Hey, all you sous chefs out there, this is Chef Qlik Dork, and I hope that you are well rested and caffeinated up, my friends. For 41 years now, I've been using the expression context is king. You see, without context, data is just a bunch of zeros and ones, and as much as I love zeros and ones, they can't be trusted. It'd be like handing you a coffee cup and a potato. Both are useful, but you'd kind of need some context as to why I was giving them both to you at the same time. Hey, as always, there's no microwaves here. We're going to be putting our hearts and souls into this dish. Google has a white chat box, just like Claude or any LLM-based chat. You've used Google for years with questions like movies near me, weather near me, and just like magic. It displays the movies that are just a few miles from your house, not the ones around the world, or weather for your area, not the weather in Antarctica. If you've been speaking about something with someone and you start typing a search like magic again, after 2 characters, it blows your mind and presents just what you were looking for. But it's not really magic, my friends. And I don't want you to assume that the white chat box for LLMs is anything close. You see, I'm going to be really honest. Google's complete context is you. You are their context. Yes, they can search through the current collective wisdom of the world, but their internal knowledge graph is about you for one simple reason. They make money on you. They need to know everything they possibly can about you so that they can sell ads that are targeted at you. What they don't know is anything about your data because they don't make money on your data. You have a different context. You have a narrow focus on what you want. So when you type a question like, please answer my simple question into a white chat window, you're hoping that that simple question can come back because that's how Google has trained you. There's a knowledge graph that's in your head, but you aren't used to articulating that into words. You've been thinking about something and you're just looking for that next question out loud, but you forget about the 30 minutes that went into that question in your head. Applications like QlikSense have shielded you from the complexity of the actual data model. When you click buttons or you see objects on the screen, somebody has coded something rather elaborately to try to hide that complexity from you. What about Chef Claude? Well, his context is literally the collective wisdom of the world that was at some point in time. It is not current. While Google can search through the current collective wisdom of the world, it doesn't really have it all represented and it doesn't know how things relate to each other. It's just dealing with your searches. Whereas Claude has all of that in its memory because that's what it's been trained on. And with Qlik MCP, when you're asking questions about your data, it has complete access to all of the data, the entire data model, the complexity of it. There's just one thing, as smart as this thing is, there's one thing it doesn't have. It can't see your thoughts, the context, or the nuances in your brain, because you're on the other side of that door. You've probably heard this term a lot recently, semantics, and here's a definition for you. Logically, what I want to help you understand is that a large language model like Claude or OpenAI or ChatGPT or any of them can semantically interpret your natural language words to some implied meaning in whatever the target is that it's looking at pretty well. So if you ask for revenue in your question, but your data model has a single field called sales, wow, like magic, it's going to make a match for you. Isn't that fantastic? Now, there's very few times in an enterprise where there's one single version of the truth. Right? I have yet to, in my 41 years, work in a sales app that literally had one field that was sales. There's all kinds of versions of that. Across the enterprise, it could be sales for finance, and they define that as booked revenue. So there might be a field called booked revenue, but they really think of that as sales, right? If it was just that, we could make that semantic relationship pretty easily. But if operations also has a value in there and they count sales as shipped units, then, oh man, now that golly, what's poor Claude going to do? Maybe for the sales team, sales are disguised as closed deals regardless of their fulfillment status. But accounting looks at sales as recognized revenue. But the product team sees sales as active subscriptions. In the applications that I'm working on recently, there's sales that is common currency, there's sales that is a budget so that it's for planning and it stays consistent through the cycle until a quote might be changed. There's actual sales that is converted to a currency based on a currency rate as of the date it is closed. And there could be all of these various different figures that somebody looking through a keyhole is thinking, I just want the sales, right? Because in your mind, you only ever deal with the professional services sales or the education sales or the analytics sales versus the data integration sales. And so all of these truths are true in their respective context. The person looking in the keyhole from the product team expects one thing, but the person from the accounting team or the sales team expects something different because they're not thinking about that model being complex. The word semantics assumes a single ontology, where the reality is that there could be competing ontologies in any one of your applications. If Chef Claude could respond to you when you're asking a question, he would probably say something like this. Look, man, I am doing semantic reasoning on a data model that I can see globally, and I'll find all of the fields that are related to sales. But making a field level assumption, which of those 50 versions of the truth is the right one, I might be wrong on that. So what can you do? What can you do to help this? Well, on the screen here, you can see I might want to ask a question like, hey, I need to know our total adjusted sales figures from the not so simple application. Seems like a simple question. Well, again, I might have a whole bunch of measures that are sales, and I could call these things anything I wanted. Well, one of the things that you can do is it will interpret your descriptions. So if you put a description there that says, hey, this is our adjusted sales figures, and somebody asks for adjusted sales figures, it doesn't matter what the real field name is. So I kept these field names simple as like sales 1, sales 2, sales 3, and that was in my last video, kind of showing you examples of those things. Well, the great news is if you put that metadata into your master item descriptions, Chef Claude or ChatGPT is going to be able to look at those things through Qlik MCP and interpret your meaning and narrow that down to the version of truth that you're looking for. Now, of course, if I just say I need to know our sales figures, I still may be out of luck. It's going to have to make a guess of some kind. The basic moral of the story here is if you ask a question and it gives you a number that you think flat out is wrong, or you say, ooh, I think that model's hallucinating, it's just randomly making up numbers, oh, we can't even trust these results, we should stop asking questions, I want you to remind yourself that that chat window, that bot on the other side, whether it's Chef Claude or another chef, in AI is doing semantic reasoning on a gigantic model, and it sees the whole model. But making field level assumptions could be wrong. And you should prompt again to ask for, hey, I want to make sure what my options were. Can you help me make sure what your assumptions were with that? I want to remind you, without governance and metadata, sales could reasonably mean any number of things, right? You had that narrow scope. Most of all, I want to let you know that in course 230, we're going to be flipping this conversation. Because humans, you are the other half of the problem. Instead of asking, what did AI do wrong? Did it hallucinate? Saying we can't trust the results. I'm going to ask you to ask yourselves, what does the AI see that I might be missing? Well, until then, sous chefs, as always, prepare well and serve with confidence.